I'm gonna gossip to Lee. What's up, Lee? I went on this date. Cove didn't want to dance with me, and he pouted in the motherfucking golf course, and then he was like, oh, let's dance, I guess. What's up, bitches? It's time to end this summer. Let's end it. Yes, I am. There was no denying it. Today was the very last day of summer. Tomorrow you were heading to class. You were excited. Oh, I was always anxious, always anxious. Going back to school meant handing over the autonomy you'd had over the past weeks. You had very little control over what you did at school or who you shared class with. It was always with a heavy heart that you chose your outfit for the final day of freedom. Life was going to be different, but you had to come to think of the summer vacation as a norm. School sucked up the majority of the year, whereas the summer vacation was just a respite in the middle. So, rather than it being different, it was kind of a return to the normal. What did your normal life really mean? You considered how fondly your moms talked about their summer vacation as kids. You dimly recognized that one year the pattern of school and summer itself would be over for good. It was hard to imagine. You gotten distracted, one arm still out of a sleeve. You pulled it through and put your mind back to the present. The season had brought about plenty of changes of its own, like Kira's visit, though that too was coming to an end today. You're happy you got to know her. You had become extremely fond of her. You didn't like her. Your mind wasn't made up how you felt about her. You didn't care one way or another. I'm going to say glad to get to know her. She was interesting to be around. You liked how easy it was to talk to her. You finished dressing, which was good. Cove would be there any moment. You agreed he'd see his mom off together. Officially, the plan was that he would come over to bring you round to his house when she was ready to set off. But you both know that you'd be hanging out for at least a little while beforehand. Kira's visit had troubled Cove when it first happened. It had been a sudden change, thanks to Mr. Holden's infamous tendency to surprise people. But once he was able to adjust, he'd been pretty good spirits her around. It was a relief for everyone. The next thought that crossed your mind was, only be polite to get to the door to wait for Cove. Couldn't wait to see Cove, so you went downstairs to meet him. Cove knew your house well enough you could lounge in your room and wait for him. Probably at the bottom, like he comes over all the time. You made yourself comfortable on your bed. This was where you'd be hanging out, so there wasn't much point in going downstairs just to come straight back up again. It wouldn't be the first and probably wouldn't be the last time that Cove brought himself up to your room without you taking him there. A knock at the door broke you from your idle daydream you'd been having about endless summers. You recognized the sound immediately, different from the cheery tune Ma rapped out when she wanted your attention or Mom's direct beats, and Elizabeth tended to skip knocking completely. Those knocks were just hard enough to be heard and had uncommonly long pauses in between. They were Cove's. Come in. Cove opened the door, smiling casually as he caught your eye. Hey. Hi, Cove. Step further into the room. With other guests, you might have offered them a seat, but you and Cove were long past those tentative stages of friendship. Your room was as familiar to him as his own. You watched as Cove sat down in your desk chair, his preferred spot. He rolled it closer to the bed to make it easier to chat, tweaking the angle so that he was facing you fully. Once happy with the position, he leaned in towards you, hands held in his lap. His actions weren't the ones of someone who planned on moving from his spot at any time soon, even though you had an appointment to keep together that day. When's your mom leaving? We've got some time. She's still got to shower and stuff before she goes. She didn't want me to just keep hanging around while she was doing that. He lifted his head, his gaze drifting out through the window, and he chuckled. Can't believe she's already leaving. So when I was getting used to her being there every day. He leaned back in the chair, a wry smile tickling his cheeks. Yeah, you nodded. She'll be back. Time's going by fast. I was just musing about the time going by fast, so let's go with that. He cocked his head thoughtfully before shrugging. He ran a hand through his hair before shaking his head, as if shaking off the topic like a dog wiping water following a dip in the sea. Cove perched an elbow on the chair's arm and propped his jaw against his curled hand. There was a natural ease to his movements, a familiarity from the echoes of all the times before when he'd sat in that same position. This was a really nice summer. Totally, it was all right. I'm glad we got to spend so much time together. I've had better. I've had better. I'm looking forward to the next. You nodded in agreement. I'm gonna say I'm glad we spent so much time together. Cove, still nestled cozily in your chair, smiled at your response. How are your fish doing? Really good. Things in the tank are stable and everybody looks healthy. That was nice to hear. You learned from Cove how hard it was to maintain an aquarium. Shiloh has been busy. Keeps darting between the plants and out again when I walk by. It's like a game of peekaboo. That does sound like Shiloh, I'm just gonna say. Or hide and seek. Cove idly glanced out of the window. He gave a resigned sigh. It's gonna be harder to surf, with school getting colder out. I don't want to get rusty. I don't know how I'm gonna go on without surfing. I like surfing, but I wish it liked me. I'm over surfing now. Surfing's cool when we can. Sorry, Cove. I'm gonna say I like surfing, but I wish it liked me, because I'm not good at surfing. Although this first one, if I said it ironically, but I don't think I'm gonna say it ironically. So we'll go with the second one. I can't stick it to the board. He gave a light smile, coupled with a shrug in response. Won't be long until we get our grades for that summer work we did. Cove's bangs fluttered as he huffed, sinking in the chair. Not looking forward to that. Well, we'll just have to see what mine are like. Cove looked at you, eyes bright. Things'll work out. I know it. Do you think we'll see Miranda around school this year? Probably. She should be in one of our classes again. You hoped you'd see her often. It would be nice to see her again. You weren't interested in seeing her around. It didn't matter to you. It would be nice, I'm gonna say. French fires! Cove! All of a sudden, from downstairs... Wow, that's not even what that sentence said. The sudden call from downstairs caught you both unaware. You'd nearly forgotten the world outside your room. From the guilty look on his face, Cove had done the same. Just had a call. Cove's mom's ready to go. If you're quick, she might keep the mandated motherly smothering to a minimum. You doubted that. But it was nice that Mom and Miss Priest had their strange sense of humor in common. Your eyes met Cove's. Wordlessly, you headed downstairs together. Each step on the way there was painfully slow, like he was trying to delay the inevitable. His whole body tense, leaving the house, and Cove froze altogether before you both could cross the street. Door's open. Dad must be taking her stuff out. He swallowed hard. Really gonna leave? Smiled at him reassuringly. You gave him a pat on the back. You rested your hand on his arm. Isn't the last time you see her. I will pat your back. Your motion was soft, and you weren't sure if he even noticed at first. It'll be okay. Cove's bottom lip quivered, and he turned away. You gave his back a couple more reassuring pats. Thanks. At that, some of the conflict wearing his face eased a bit. Together, you went across the street and inside his house, finding his parents in the living room surrounded by his mom's packed things. Hey, bruh. Good timing. I just called the taxi. And hi, French Fires. So glad I got to see you today. It was fabulous getting to know you this summer. I finally got to put a face to the name I've heard so many times. She winked, and Cove pouted on cue over the teasing. Really happy I got to meet you too. I hope you had a good time visiting. Bye! you didn't say anything. Like, I hope you had a good time visiting. That's where I'm gonna go. I really did. Thank you. Nodding, Kira turned her attention back to the boys. She patted Cliff on the arm with a warm smile, and then she enveloped Cove in a crushing hug. Initially, Cove squirmed to break free from her grip, but his mom was unfazed and kept him locked in place. Heartbeats later, he gave in and hugged her back tightly. I'm so happy this trip was a success, bruh. Cliff looked like he was bursting with pride. And then Cove stiffened. Kira loosened her hold on him enough to study his face, concerned. She spoke her next words in a whisper that had been meant just for her son. Do you want to unshelve it? Raising an eyebrow, Cliff watched them carefully. His smile began to falter. Strong, bro. Cove sighed, and his gaze flickered over to you for a moment, and then just as quick back to his parents. All right. Really? Are you sure? I don't want to do it now. I can tell Dad later. Nervously, you watched the exchange with the growing suspicion that Cove didn't want to have that conversation while you were there. Wondered if you should offer to leave when Kira gave Cove a pat on the head. You can always call me if you want me to be a part of the conversation, okay? Is he gonna go stay with her? I'll call. Thanks, Mom. Cliff still looked baffled about what Kira and Cove were referring to, but you watched as his shoulders slowly relaxed. You figured that he decided to wait for Cove to be ready to talk to him. And with Cliff's silence, things seemed to be settled for now. After that, it wasn't long before the taxi arrived, rolling up in front of the house in a clear view of the open door. Kira stood up, smiling sadly. Well, that's my ride. Oh, I can't do their voices in unison, man. Come on! Can't do that. The matching reply got a chuckle out of Kira as you filed out of the house. Father and son went with Kira's bags in hand. Once outside, you spotted your family waiting by the street, and to your surprise, Derek was also with them. He stood uncomfortably as he waved as soon as you noticed him. Hey, French Fires, man. Hi, Cove. When did you get here? My dad dropped me off just a bit ago, man. Thought I could come visit one more time before school started. Oh, you picked a busy time. Sorry. Derek couldn't even look at Cove. He nervously kept rolling a pebble with the bottom of his shoe. I wasn't even thinking that your mom would be leaving today, man. Sorry. What? What? You're not interrupting anything, bruh. You're always welcome here. It would have been sad if I didn't get to say goodbye before leaving. I think so, too. It was apparent Derek would have preferred to have gotten there at a more opportune moment. He never liked seeming impolite, but their reassuring words soothed his worries. The tension he was holding in his body lessened, and he looked like he was feeling much more like himself. Bye, Derek. It was fun getting to know you. Bye, Mia. Is there anything else I can do to help? Nah, don't worry yourself over that, brah. We're just about set. In that short amount of time, Cliff had gathered and packed the bags into the trunk. Kira took one last look at everyone and sighed. All right, I don't want to keep the driver waiting. It's time to head out. The little crowd that had formed around started their choruses of farewells, and well wishes traveling, but Kira still made no move to get into the taxi. She placed her attention on Cove. I'll call when I get to the airport and when I make it to Nevada. Also, you better call the moment you walk in the door at home, bruh. Otherwise, we'll be wondering all night if you got into trouble on the way there. I can do that. And you call tomorrow, too? So I can tell you how school went. Of course. I want to hear all about it. Kira put a hand on Cove's head and affectionately ruffled his hair one last time. She then let go, only to move into squeezing his cheeks with her hands instead. I love you so much, baby. She was chuckling by the time she'd freed him and rounded things off with a small tap on the tip of his nose. Cove rubbed at his face with a grin. Finally, she walked to the car while waving and took her seat in the taxi. Cliff hooked an arm around Cove's shoulder and kept him close as they began to pull away. For a moment, Cove looked up at his dad and then wrapped her arm around across his back. Bye, Mom. Bye. Travel safe, brah. Kira rolled down the window and stuck her head out of it. She waved again while blowing kisses at Cove and Cliff. See you again. Before she was out of sight, you decided to call out with your family and hers, wave goodbye, watch quietly. I'm gonna wave. The taxi headed down the road. You stuck your hand in the air to send her off. The cab turned down another road and completely disappeared from view. Cove let go of his dad and took a few steps out into the empty street, still looking in the direction his mom went. He smiled quietly, deep in thought. You got the impression Cove was feeling better than he was earlier. He was finally content with the way things were. You jumped a bit when your mom put a hand on your shoulder, pulling you away from your thoughts. She smiled when you looked at her. It was a great vacation, huh? Yeah, I don't think so. You nodded, you shrugged. I don't know. Summer isn't over until the second I fall asleep. That's what I'm going to say. No naps for you then. Can't risk you accidentally ending summer a few hours too early for the rest of us. Chuckling, you shook your head, amused. Cove walked back over to the group, still genuinely happy. Derek grinned at him welcomingly, and everyone else there smiled at him, even Elizabeth. Ma clapped her hands together, bringing everyone's attention back to the present. It's almost lunchtime. I think I'll put something special together. Her eyes sparkled with a plan, and Mom smiled. I bet you could use some help with that. That'd be absolutely wonderful. Derek glanced between the two, the eyebrows furrowed. Is there something I could do, man? Your moms exchanged a fond expression. Ma shook her head. They're sweet, Derek, but it's all right. It's not your job. Technically, your dad left you under Cliff's watch. You're meant to be taken care of by him, not doing chores for the neighbors. Mom laughed a little over her own joke. Watched Derek look away, discouraged. It's okay. I don't mind, man. He was a little bashful about it. He wondered if Mom's joke had just reminded him that he wasn't initially meant to be invited to lunch. It was getting a little awkward. Mom grinned sympathetically. Her comment was meant to lighten the mood, not bring it back down. Ma tried again to get things moving forward. Why don't you kids go have fun? You all can come back in about an hour. We'll make enough for everyone. Mom nodded in agreement. Another stunning idea, Lonnie. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Sounds like a plan then. I don't want to cramp your style. I've got some stuff to work on so I can be out of your hair this afternoon, brah. You should come by later, too. No reason you should be the odd man out. Mom seemed amused as Cliff rubbed his neck nervously. He grinned a wavering but pleased smile. Appreciate the invite, brah. He looked over the assembled crowd with knowing glances. I can help too. With as many people as you're feeding, it's gonna be a lot of food, brah. Didn't you hear what we told Derek? It wouldn't be fair to make you cook when we're the ones who are inviting you in. Ma raised an eyebrow when Cliff waved it off. I insist, brah. Derek would be missing time with his pals. This would be a break for me. I'm quite the chef. Ma and Mom exchanged further glances before Mom shrugged. An airtight argument. If you're sure, we'll be happy to have you, Chef Cliff. Cliff's grin widened and seemed more hyped than you'd expected him to be about helping with lunch. Cove shook his head, a small smile on his face. Then all us grown-up people will be heading inside. I assume the rest of you kiddos are staying out? Maybe not all of them. Ma tilted her head, a silent question for Elizabeth. Your sister thought for a moment. I'll stay with the kids. That's great. Both your moms smiled at her, while Derek and Cove didn't seem to appreciate her phrasing. With the plan decided, all three parents waved and headed for your house. It was just you teenagers now. Elizabeth looked at you and the others, a curious expression on her face. So, what now? You silently wondered if Elizabeth only stayed out with you to avoid getting roped into work. Then again, she could just genuinely want to hang out. You couldn't tell with your sister. Cove spoke up after no one else did to answer Elizabeth's question. Want to go to the shopping street? Been a while, and I don't think there's a lot of other things we could agree on. Yeah, sure. Sounds awesome, man. Unlike you guys, I haven't been there 1,001 times. It's new to me. Let's do it. You strolled across the road as a group, down the beach and then to the left. It took less than 15 minutes to arrive, one of the conveniences of Sunset Bird. The four of you looked around at the familiar shops, trying to see if anything caught your attention this time. Derek was the most enthusiastic. He checked out every stall with his eyes wide with wonder. Elizabeth and Cove were in good spirits as well. That's so cool, man! He ran over to a street magician who was currently doing a card trick for a group of enchanted tourists. Derek clapped when the magician showed a middle-aged man his card. Derek turned back to the group with a curious gleam on his face. What does it take to perform here anyway, man? You have to ask somebody, or do you just show up and start doing stuff? Who would you even ask? It's a public street. Hey, Mr. Mayor, can I pull a rabbit out of a hat? Please, Flopsy is well behaved, I promise. Derek chuckled, his eyes searching up and down the scene. Maybe there's a boss of the shopping street, man. No one does any of this around my neighborhood. It's regular stores behind walls. It's different if someone wants a real store, but here, I'm pretty sure people are just putting on their little shows whenever they want to do whatever. So neat, man. Would we be allowed to do something too? Cove laughed, and Derek began almost vibrating with excitement. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. What'd we do? Well, man, I don't know. Not yet. I mean, I just found out it's a possibility, you know? Gotta be something, man. We know cool stuff. Pretty sure if we think about it, we could plan a show and really get the crowd pumped. I don't know about that, Derek. You thought it was a good idea. You felt he could try this idea on his own. You thought Derek needed to abandon that bad idea stat. I'm gonna look to you two. I don't want to make this decision. Derek continued to brainstorm out loud about different potential performances, while you glanced over at Cove and Elizabeth. I mean, I could bounce a soccer ball in my head, man. This time I tried, I got 8 bounces before it fell. Oh, Roxas does that on the street for entertainment. I wouldn't bring a ball here. Why not, man? Cove gestured to everything around. Stalls, the people, all the colorful chaos that made up the shopping street. Would you want to chase a lost ball here? What if you hit somebody? Even if you're good, someone else could bump into you. Ah, that's true, man. Derek thought about it some more. Then he watched another performer, a woman doing tricks with her 2 small dogs. One was fluffy and cream-colored, while the other one was a cool gray. The woman held up rings. Both animals jumped through the openings, happy to receive a treat at the end. Derek brightened. Maybe I'll teach crabs how to race, man. Crabs? It could work, man. With some amusement, the gang continued to peruse the stalls. Elizabeth found some earrings with a dangling, badly misrepresented globe that everyone laughed at. Cove picked out a blob as Iceland, but Derek thought it had to be Greenland. You know, this is a world with what looks like 9 continents. I think you're both wrong. Wanted to side with Cove, wanted to back up Derek, wanted to agree with your sister. No, it's Australia! That's what I'm gonna say. The other 3 giggled at your interjection. Suddenly, Cove froze. You stared at him and then tried to see what caught his attention. You saw a familiar face down the way, and it all made sense. If it's fucking Jeremy! Ah! Between the crowds, his bright hair stood out like a neon green bowl on a kitchen sink. It was Jeremy. Jeremy slowly drifted his eyes down the street, and his eyes widened in mutual recognition. He definitely noticed you. Derek frowned and Cove tensed up. You couldn't help but remember the last time you'd seen Jeremy at Miranda's birthday party. No wonder Cove was already defensive. Stood there shocked, he glared at Jeremy. Don't wave at him. Don't smile at him. Look away! No touch, no talk, no eye contact. You didn't want to even start with Jeremy's shenanigans today. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. Her gaze swept over Jeremy without a hint or a clue. Jeremy simply scoffed to himself and waded deeper into the crowd of people. Derek relaxed and exhaled loudly. Glad he's not going to start anything, man. He peeked over to Elizabeth with a tiny smirk. See? I was a mean kid, man. Huh? She still didn't get it. The first summer day hadn't made nearly as much of an impression on her as it did for Derek, but he smiled and waved it off. Just forget about it, man. I already have. He laughed, and Cove smiled lightly. He seemed in a much better mood now that Jeremy was gone. Your eyes wandered over to where Jeremy disappeared. You hadn't forgotten the day you met him, either. He was only going to be in town for a vacation with the parents he hated. That glimpse was probably the last time you'd ever see him. You mentioned that realization to everyone. You kept the thought to yourself. You broke from the group and went after Jeremy. Don't do that. We're just gonna hush-hush. Elizabeth snapped her fingers in front of your face. Apparently, you had spaced out. Cove and Derek were already at the next stall. Come on, unless you want to get left here. You nodded and caught up with the others. Cove raised an eyebrow. What were you thinking about? Nothing. He gave you a searching look, but let it drop when Derek yelled at you to go check out something. Jeremy was unlike anyone you had ever met before. You thought he was horrible, you thought he was weird, you thought he was stupid, you thought he was pitiful, you thought he was okay, you didn't know what to think. Yeah, I don't know, he's like complaining all the time. I don't know what to think about him. You and the group move on from stall to stall and from Jeremy. What's the music? It didn't take long for everyone to return to joking. You all enjoyed what little time you had left as Elizabeth mentioned the hour was almost up. The little trip had flown by, and lunch must have been waiting for you now. Derek bounced on the balls of his feet. Come on, man. Let's get going so we can eat. I'm starving. We have to. I can't wait. I've had enough walking around. Homebound, here we go. Yeah, I'm just gonna nod in agreement. Cove stretched one of his arms lazily. Let's go then. You looked at him appraisingly. You asked Cove to carry you back to the house? Sure, why not? We're living vicariously today. Hey, Cove. Yeah? You carry me back home. What? Cove's smile said he was amused, while the tilt of his eyebrows was in full disbelief. You explained that you wanted a piggyback ride. You didn't want to walk back. You told him it was a special occasion. Yeah, send the summer, bish, carry me. I think that special transportation makes sense on such a big day. Cove sighed and shook his head. Elizabeth and Derek became a chorus of laughter. Come on, Cove, it'll be fun. All right. Cove stepped over to you. He looked like he couldn't believe what he was doing, and your lips quirked into a large smile. Oh yeah! Thanks! He carefully crouched down in front of you so that you could climb on. It wasn't hard to hop on. He slipped his arms under your legs and did his best to lift you. It was wobbly, but he did manage to stand up all the way. Elizabeth watched with a smirk on her face while Derek laughed even harder. It was fair to say that your antics were entertaining. You were glad Cove went with it. Cove carried you home contentedly. Other than a few good-natured jokes at your expense, he didn't complain. He made it all the way back to your house without putting you down. It was a pleasant walk home, and in no time you had made it back. Derek got to the front door and held it open for everyone as you each moseyed inside. The three parents were still in the kitchen, and they looked up and waved. Welcome back, everyone. Made it just in time, brah. I hope you're hungry. When Cove had brought you inside, the parents couldn't help but notice the odd conveyance. Your moms were unsure, and Mr. Holden raised an eyebrow. Everybody's like, what is going on? Did you pull something, French fries? I'm okay. Oh, Cove, you're getting so strong. And reliable too, brah. What a guy. Cove rolled his eyes at the commentary, then started walking to your couch. He bent down and let yourself plop back onto the couch. Thanks for the lift. Cove exhaled loudly and shook out his arms. He just seemed relieved that he had made it. So, did everyone have a nice time out? She gestured for people to take a seat at the table. Plates and silverware had already been placed out. You took your normal seat. Elizabeth sat across from you, and Derek took the seat to your left. Cove sat on your right. Oh yeah, man, we had a great time. It was fine. Cove shrugged, not willing to say more than that. Really liked it? I guess it was okay. Yeah, the bank heist went off without a hitch. That is something I would say. Your joke got some chuckles going around the table. That's good in my book, brah. Casually, Mr. Holden sat in the empty seat across from Cove. He smiled at you and all the other kids. Mom set down a platter full of water glasses on the table. She looked down at the gathering. It's a good thing we have 8 chairs. I can't remember the last time we've had a group this big over for a meal. Can you pass the drinks down to the other side? Make sure you all get one. Sure, man. Those close to the cups obliged and started offering waters around. As everything got set up, Ma chided Elizabeth to take her elbows off the table. And you shouldn't slouch. She pointed to Mr. Holden, who was leaning forward with both arms on the table. Hoops, brah. Mr. Holden seemed unsure about all the sudden attention and carefully rearranged his posture to something suitable for a fancy dinner. He smiled sheepishly. Elizabeth rolled her eyes, and Ma gave a look to level her. You shouldn't be impolite to a guest in the house, either. Elizabeth groaned. Long and long-suffering. Ma giggled, and Mr. Holden chuckled. A lot of you could learn a thing or two from Derek. He has the best manners here. Derek blushed, but it was true. His posture was upright and formal. He even held his fork gracefully. His table manners, on top of all his attempts to aid your parents, made him the model of meal attendee behavior. Aw, it's nothing, man. It's true, though. You've been a lovely guest. I've noticed that, too. It's always nice when you stay over, dear. Derek smiled and sat a little taller in his chair. And you do have anything good to say about our other guests? She looked deliberately at Cove with a teasing smirk. Or is there just nothing to say? Well, Cove is my number one bra, but he does still clean his hands by wiping them on his pants. Who doesn't do that, Mr. Holden? That's what I want to know. Cove frowned at that and absent-mindedly brushed his hands on his pant legs. Your mom laughed lightly. Elizabeth, you should know after all these years, Cove is hardly a guest anymore. Cove smiled awkwardly. Thanks. Manners? Who cares? I don't think it's that big of a deal. You teased Cove for his bad habit. You complimented Derek on his politeness. You joked that Derek was basically an adult. I'm gonna do that. Let's do that. Next time, Derek really is gonna stay inside and cook. He's practically a mini adult. If he's joining us grown-ups, then you're gonna have to treat him like one. Okay, so, Mr. Suarez, how go your taxes? Derek shook his head and chuckled. Everyone ate their meal together and continued to hang out for the afternoon. After the food, you and the others played a couple games and talked about plans for the upcoming year. The time passed quickly. Soon it was time to part ways. Mr. Holden talked to your moms and Cove drifted over to you, knowing that as soon as his dad finished up, he would be leaving. Told us stay. We have some stuff to do before everything closes today. Yeah, bye. Could you move? I need the phone. Cove raised an eyebrow, and Elizabeth impatiently gestured behind him. Cove realized he was standing right in front of where the receiver was placed. He sidestepped out of the way and shook his head, clearly thinking Elizabeth was rushing too much. Her sister made a beeline for the phone and started dialing the number of what you figured was one of her friends. Knowing Elizabeth, she was going to be on there for a while. You, Cove, and Derek shuffled closer to the door. It seemed like Mr. Holden was wrapping up his conversation, so everyone started saying their various farewells. See you later, Cove. Gotta do this again sometime, man. Yeah, see you. Cove turned to you and smiled slightly. Bye, French fires. Hugged Cove goodbye, patted Cove on the back, nudged Cove's shoulder, ruffled Cove's hair. You waved. I shall hug him for now and forevermore. You stepped forward and spread your arms wide. Cove only had a moment to react before you encircled him in your arms. Cove took a second to return the hug, surprised. He leaned into you and held on. Then he hovered nearby with a small smile on his face when it ended. Seriously, dude, we have to hang out together later. I'm gonna miss you during school, man. He punched Cove's arm softly. Cove still rubbed the spot afterwards. Cove and his dad left soon after that. Your parents started cleaning up the house, and Elizabeth was still chatting to her friend on the phone. It was just you and Derek left. He elected to stay outside in front of the house to wait for his dad to pick him up. You decided to keep your guest company, although he was originally Cove's visitor. A light summer breeze blew through your hair, and Derek shifted his weight from foot to foot. Thanks for waiting with me, man. He kicked at the ground distractedly. Dad's still gonna be a while. You wanna go for a walk, man? Sure, I don't mind. The two of you walked down the street again, just wandering without a destination planned. It was a quiet stroll, too quiet for Derek being the company. You turned to him when you noticed that he wasn't saying a word. That was unusual. Derek always had something he could chat about. You weren't sure if you should ask about it. Somehow you ended up at the old park near the beach. You glanced over to Derek once more, still expecting him to say something any second now. However, nothing came from him. In fact, now you noticed a frown was creeping on his face. Derek smiled when he realized you were watching. At least his mouth was turned up. There wasn't anything that really felt happy in the expression. He turned away and the smile fell off his face. His eyes stared intently at the ground and you raised an eyebrow. Is everything okay? You want to talk about something, I'm here. Derek, what's going on? He kept quiet. I'm going to ask him if everything's okay.
I'm a little sad, man. It's just school's starting back up again. It's gonna be harder to visit. Have homework and clubs and practices and everything else, man. It really sucks. We go to different schools, man.
His face screwed up and his fists were tightly closed together. This was really concerning him.
What if we don't have time, man?
Channeled some optimism into the conversation and you shared these. Oh, I mean, it is a legitimate worry. I was thinking about that too. We've hung out so much this summer. It's gonna be really different not seeing you around as much. Derek looked up at the sky. It's orange and purple with little wisps of clouds scattering around. A plane flew high with a jet stream trailing behind it. Then he turned to the ground again. Derek's face was tilted far enough down that it was harder to read his expression.
Hey, French fryers. I actually wanted to talk to you about something, man. If you don't mind.
There was a pause and he waited for him to finish his thought.
I was just kind of wondering, do you like guys at all? Like, would you ever want to be with someone who was a boy? Sorry if that's weird to ask, man. Asking for a friend. Like, not asking for me, man. Like, ha, ha, this is awkward.
I could be with a guy, maybe, I don't know. You didn't answer him. I kind of don't want to talk about it. Like, yeah, I could be with a guy. It's fine.
Okay, then, man.
He hesitated before finishing his question. Oh, I knew where this is going because he's blushing and he's going to ask me who I like. You motherfucker, Derek. You sneaky motherfucker.
So, what I mean is there any guy you think is kind of cool that you like, man? Like, around here. Not at school or anything. Not me. Definitely not me, man.
Ducked his head farther and you thought about it. I like you. Well, I like Cove. Mr. Holden! Why is that an option? There are a lot of guys I think are cool. Not right now. I don't really want to say that. Like, there are not a lot of guys I think are cool. I got, like, Derek, I got Mr. Holden, I got Jeremy. That's all I got. Do I tell him I like Cove? Tis the question. Tis the question. I think so. I think we're going to tell him I like Cove. Derek raised an eyebrow. He didn't look at all convinced.
Can't tell whether you're kidding around or being serious, man. I really didn't think you, well, Cove, man.
Derek started to mumble to himself, sounding very confused.
Maybe she didn't really get my question, man.
Oh, I got it, Derek. I got it.
No, man.
Derek.
This is so awkward, man. Why'd I do this?
Oh. Derek pulled himself together somewhat meekly. He looked at you while he tried to project confidence. His posture was too tight for you to believe it. He was nervous.
You know, thinking ahead and everything is important. You gotta get yourself a game plan and all that, man. It's good to make plans. Especially backup plans.
You're my backup? You're my wingman? Oh, bro. He babbled, all full of energy and forced gusto.
Well, anyway, heard about this thing where people make pacts together with their good friends and all that, man. If they didn't find anybody else, and then they get together.
Oh, are we gonna make my best friend's wedding pact? That didn't go well for Julia Roberts.
Like together. They get married and stuff, man. So I was thinking, since it's good to have plans, it might be cool if we did something like that, man. Or not.
His eyes widened, and he started to make frantic hand gestures.
Just, Then we never have to worry about the future or finding someone, man. We can set it like a whole decade in the future. Forever from now.
A decade? I'm 13! That's not very far, Derek!
We'd have graduated high school and probably college too, man. We'd have jobs. We'd be really grown up. I mean, probably have our own places. Maybe pets and student loans and cars, man.
Derek babbled on for a while more. It was as if all the words he held in silence during your walks had burst out now, all at once.
Oh yeah, what do you think, man?
It's a good idea to have a backup plan. You accepted the deal because you like Derek. I'll think about it. I don't think that'll work. I'm sorry, Derek. Do you like me? I should just, even though I know he does, I should just ask him if he likes me. See what he does. Do it. I'm gonna do it.
Of course I do, but it's not.
He had to pause, desperate to find a way to explain himself.
It's, well, you don't have to think about that kind of grown up right now. Better to worry about that all later. Grown up, man. Why, it's a good idea to have a plan, you know? Well, honestly, I think you and me'd work out for the best. You know, man.
Good, great way to dodge my question there, Derek. It's a good idea. I think having backup plans sounded smart. You accept the deal. These are all the same, except asking him if he likes me. I'm gonna tell him I'm gonna think about it, because that's kind of weird. It's kind of a big decision for just being put on the spot.
Yeah, sure. Don't worry about it, man. It's just an idea. Thanks for hearing me out and answering all my questions and stuff, man.
I felt a little worried that Derek wasn't happy. When you saw your face, he smiled encouragingly.
Promise I'm not mad. Just wondering, man. Sure things will be okay in the future no matter what, man.
You just nodded. You didn't spend much longer at the park after that. Derek didn't want to miss his dad, so you both made your way back to your street. After Derek went back home, you decided to settle in for the night. Stretching your arms over your head, you noticed that the living room and phone were free. Took it easy, you called Lee. Picked up the receiver and quickly punched in the familiar number while going to take a seat on the couch. Soon enough, after explaining the situation to the housekeeper, Lee answered. Hi, Lee. Can you talk? Definitely. We practically have to. My gosh, can you believe it's almost time for school to start? What happened to our summer? School starts first thing tomorrow for me. And I thought starting next week was bad enough. Enjoy your last week. Oh, I will. I hope you'll survive your first day. Me too. I need a good year. Ditto, you're like 13! Had a good year to you, well, 2020's gonna suck for you. And at least summer was nice while it lasted, right? We were busy. Yeah. Fondly, you thought about all the best memories you made this summer. Lee was there for some, but there were still many you hadn't filled her in on yet. Reminisced about a moment of your summer, you moved on to talk to her. We'll reminisce, it'll be fun. You began to speak about Miranda's birthday, the road trip. Oh, the boy in my loft. I have to tell her that. The soiree, I just said I was going to tell her that. The day of the big shopping trip, that was a fun day. When you had to go to the library, when you went to Cove's house for dinner, Cove's mom took you on a wild ride in that incredibly hot afternoon. I think we got to dish with her and tell her all the things Cove. So let's talk about the road trip. Do I conveniently leave the part out where he snuck in my loft? I probably do. I went on a vacation. Cove's parents ended up inviting my whole family on an RV road trip. Whoa, that's awesome! It was a 3-day trip and we visited the Redwood National Forest. Lucky! Park was amazing. Fun hanging out with everyone. Yeah! Cove snuck in my loft! Bitches! Do it! Cove did what? Wait! Stop!
beginning?
She's intrigued. It took a while you stopped laughing from Lee's reaction long enough to tell her every detail of the story. She excitedly squealed more than once. I can't believe you've been holding out on me with such a juicy story. Nothing really happened. Oh, you keep telling yourself that. You have to keep me updated on what happens next. It's hard to focus on what she was saying. Your face was probably red right now just thinking about what happened. Oh, there's more reminiscing to do, bish. Then I gotta tell you that we went on a date. Went on a motherfucking date. I went to a soiree at my mom's country club. There was lots of food, dancing, people dressed up formally. Oh, I've been to one of those. They're cool. How did it go for you? Cove gave me a flower. Elizabeth didn't come. She stayed home. It turned out to be a pretty good night. It was a terrible night. Yeah, Cove gave me a flower. That's so sweet. Wait, was he your date? Well, it was just a practice date. That's nice, too. After laughing a bit, you dove into telling Lee everything about your night with Cove. You enjoyed sharing the memory with her. I gotta tell her about other things. Oh yeah, when he asked me to stay the night, I gotta tell her that. One night, Cove's parents invited me over for dinner at their house for the first time. Mr. Holden made Mexican food. Meal was good. Mexican is yummy, so that's no surprise. What else happened? Played card games. I got to name one of Cove's pet fish. It was just a really good night. It was a pretty terrible night. I mean, we did both of those things, but I'd probably be excited about naming the fish. What did you pick? Shiloh. Wow! Why hasn't Cove asked me to name one of his fish? He has a bunch, right? That had you bursting into laughter. You almost accidentally dropped the phone, and she giggled in return. I think I'm done reminiscing, telling you all my dishy gossip about Cove. What was your big highlight of summer, Lee? Talking to you is always the best part of my summer. Even though it was a phone call, you just knew that Lee was winking at you. You laughed, you shook your head. Come on, tell me! What, you don't believe me? Lee. So, a high point for me was I took a trip with my parents to Europe. It was amazing. You and Lee continued to go over your adventures until you both were yawning at each other over the phone. At that, you decided it was a good time to say goodbye for now. You did have school to wake up for in the morning. Bye, Lee. Night, French fires. Talk to you later. You left the phone on the side table for now. That's not where it goes! You put that phone away! Looking at the clock on the wall, you saw there was only about 10 minutes until your moms would be insisting you had to go to bed, so you could be rested enough for school. Stretch your legs out on the couch and sighed in defeat, watching the minute hand change 1 minute closer to bedtime. You rearranged yourself, feeling reckless, and looked out the window. Startled initially, you stopped. You spotted a figure out on the hills. It was Cove. When the surprise faded, you realized it really wasn't that much of a shock at all. It was exactly something Cove would do. Went outside, ran off to go see him, you left him alone. You smacked the window to get his attention. You opened the window to call him out. I would smack a window. I think I gotta pick it. Grinning, you sneakily crept over to the window. When you were right in front of the glass, you slapped both your hands hard against it. Cove's body visibly jumped where he stood and his head whipped around, trying to figure out the source of the noise. When he noticed the clattering in the window behind him, the window from your house, he tried to shake his head in disapproval, but even from that distance, you knew he was smiling. Amused with your own antics, you waved at Cove. Then I'll go outside. Then I'll come say hi, bish. Derek asked me to marry him in the future. I think you should know that. It's important. Also, your dad paid me $20 to hang out with you. Strolling casually, you went over to the front door. When you arrived, you noticed how many fireflies were out that night. They drifted along lazily, barely minding your presence as you waded through to reach the top of the hill. Cove turned towards you as you approached, and you noticed right away that Cove was still a little sour about the scare.
Hi.
You grinned in response to Cove's look, and he shook his head in defeat. Sighing dramatically, he seemed to finally let it go. Hey, what are you doing out here?
Nothing. Not really.
He shrugged, seeming unhappy at his own answer. You stared at him, waiting for him to continue.
Well, guess I was kind of feeling weird about stuff. So I'm getting some fresh air before bed.
You should go to sleep. I know how you feel. I feel good. I hope you feel better. You shrugged back. You nodded. I don't really know how you feel, but I don't like any of these other options, so I'm gonna go with that. It's hard to stay still. Tomorrow's gonna be the start of a new year. At the mention of school, a small noise escaped him. Cove let himself fall back onto his butt and then all the way down. So he was laying on his back, looking up at the sky. Laid down yourself, you sat in the grass, you stood there. You sat on his chest. Who does that? You lowered yourself to lay back on the hill. He had been lost in thought, but was possibly waiting for you to situate yourself. But he started speaking unprompted again.
Sorry for being kind of awkward when my mom was leaving.
Cove, you are hella awkward like all the goddamn time, okay? Surprised, you stared at him for a moment. You weren't expecting that.
I just wanted you to know that I talked to my dad about how I felt and things. I'm okay now.
You were genuinely glad to hear that, and it brought a smile to your face. But your thoughts quickly wandered back to the first day you met Mr. Holden. Did his dad confess about that? From the way Cove talked, guessed he hadn't. So there was more Cove and his dad should talk about, but it was a relief to know that they had made a start. Now was not a good time to bring up what you were thinking, though. No time is a good time. You could wait longer to say it. I ain't never gonna say it. Never gonna tell you. It was almost unbelievable how much of an impact he made on your life just by moving in next door. You couldn't even imagine what your days might have looked like in a world where you hadn't met him. Cove glanced back at you, waiting for a response, and you had no idea what to say. Then, still without a word from you, Cove gave an exaggerated shrug. What?
It's you.
Yeah, I have that look of like, what? He snickered before answering. He looked thoroughly amused with your reaction.
What you do all the time. So, I'm being you.
You do that all the time, so do you, Cove. Your son, he noticed enough to take note of it. You didn't do it that much. Not being able to argue his assessment, you accepted it. You felt bashful. I would probably feel bashful. Feeling self-conscious, you glanced at the ground and felt a blush burn across your face. When you dared look back, you saw Cove was smiling apologetically. He wasn't trying to be mean with it. Honestly, there weren't many people you could think of who could tease you about something like that. Returning his smile, you realized there was no denying that you two had been around each other for a long time. Cove broke the quiet before it could fully settle. Yeah, see you then. The final wave, Cove headed for home, but you stayed there a few moments longer. Your mind kept going back to his simple statement, see you tomorrow. No matter how much was changing around you, there were some things in your life that always seemed to remain true. The hills felt warm to you that night. Before you knew it, you were getting comfortable under the covers in your room. Your mind couldn't help but still be buzzing about thoughts with the future. You felt excited, nervous, most of the time unsure. A new chapter of your life was about to begin, and no one could say what it was going to be like. Slowly your eyes grew heavy as you drifted off to sleep, your mind spinning with wishful thoughts. No matter what happened next, you could only hope that you would make the most of it. You were ensnared in a dream when a noise from the outside world jostled your eyes snapped open, noises happened, you tried to forget it. Well, I'm probably awake because it's probably Cove. The light clatter continued. Now that you were more alert, you could distinguish it was a tapping sound. Quiet, slow, but persistent. Each beat was like being poked. You couldn't ignore it. You lifted your head from the pillow and looked for the source. Not much work was needed to puzzle it out. It was from the window. With that, you knew exactly what it was. From the color of the light filtering into your room, it was too early for anyone to be awake, including the sun. It had barely hauled itself over the horizon. But that didn't stop some people, it seemed. Sat up in bed and opened the window wide. Cool air, not yet warmed by the day, tickled your face as you pushed into the room. And just as you'd expected, there was your neighbor crouching on your windowsill. He was fully dressed, though not for school. He was wearing a wetsuit and a fond smile.
Hi, French fires.
He stared back, blinking.
So technically, we won't be back in school for a few more hours.
His voice was delicate yet deliberate, each word a careful explanation.
Classes haven't started yet. So do you want to hit the beach with me one more time this summer?
Always. Here we go again. It's way too early. You're crazy. Cove, you're so cute. You gave a decisive nod. I would probably say always, so we're going to go with that. His smile widened affectionately. You rushed to get changed into something suitable while Cove climbed back down to ground level. Your limbs, still half asleep, struggled somewhat as you attempted to coordinate them into a swimsuit, but you got there in the end. What is Cove doing? Well, I'm changing into my asking for a friend. I just want to know. Soon you were tiptoeing out of your front door, clutching a towel. Cove was already there to greet you. Your eyes met. Cove's gaze darted to your destination and back to you. You checked the door was closed, gave him a thumbs up, and the two of you leapt into action. Wordlessly, you began to run down the familiar path ahead, Cove beside you, the thrill of your illicit outing making you want to laugh. Not that you dared. If anyone in your family looked out and saw you, then your summer would be back to being over. One glance at Cove told you that he knew exactly the same, holding back stickers for fear of being heard or caught. The towel streamed out from under your arm like a cape. You were running so fast downhill, simply keeping your balance and not tumbling down was a real threat. It wasn't enough of one for you to make you slow your pace. For every step you took, the beach was a little closer, and the day a little brighter. What lay ahead for you would arrive, and you were happy to meet it. Right, we've reached our in-between for little me, and I was saying to Ari Master earlier today that I have some serious fears. I want Cove to like me, but not enough to change his shit. So I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna resist the urge to forcibly make him like me, and I'm just gonna change my girl here before I save. So I'm gonna change her little meter here. Can I change her meter? Okay. We're gonna change her meter. Getting pretty serious, y'all. We're gonna move this up to direct fondness. We're gonna, oh, not direct love, girl. Calm down. We're gonna move this up to direct crush, but look at her face change. She's like, eh? We're gonna put it on crush. That is a safe bet. Yes, I'm sure. All right, so after moving my level up to crush, I was presented with a question, which is how I wanted physical interactions to go with Cove, being from low to moderate to high. All interactions are consensual, which is really cool. So I went with middle. We're gonna go middle of the road. and we're going to see how dear old Cove interacts with us. I did not change his appearance or any of his sliders yet again. I want him to be the best Cove that he can be. The start of classes ended. The relaxed, free days of summer. It didn't take long for you to get back into the swing of the school year routine. Schedules and homework became the new normal. Derek wasn't around nearly as much. With school and after-school activities, there weren't many opportunities for him to take a trip out to your neighborhood. Sometimes you'd hear that he was at training camp or something like that. You weren't always sure what he was up to. You still kept in touch. You lost contact. Yeah, I'd say we kept in touch. The Jeremy kid did disappear after the summer, and no one ever heard from him again. No one was sad. Where he went to or what he might be up to was a mystery. You saw more of Miranda around since you had hung out with her on her birthday. She had opened up to you. The two of you talked regularly. She was the same towards Cove. After a while, the three of you developed a real friendship together. More summers came and went, like the waves on the shore, coming in and out. In your second year of high school, someone new started to visit Sunset Bird, a sunny girl named Terry Brooke. She was a friend Cove made due to them both being obsessed with the ocean. Terry was more than glad to be a friend to you, too. Someone close to Cove had to be good company, she felt, and you were pleased to get along with her as well. Funny enough, Terry was also extremely tight with Miranda, who she had known for even longer than Cove. The four of you were able to create a small friend circle. As for your home life, the Noisy Faces also had development. Changing laws and public perception countrywide made it possible for your moms to openly wear their wedding rings without question. Though they had a wedding years ago, it was only recently that the union was officially recognized everywhere in the United States, and that was a good day to say the least. Elizabeth came into her own and stopped being quite as irritable. She no longer worried about perceived childishness as she grew up for real. She didn't even mind being called Lizzie again, although most people used Liz. She eventually graduated high school and moved out to attend college in another state. It was a lot for you to adjust to your older sister being gone. Liz never let you forget her role in your life, though, and you kept in touch. Cove's relationship with his family improved over the years. Kira visited several times after that summer, and things became easier between the two. He was also closer with his dad than ever before. You knew they talked more, and that helped prevent a lot of friction before it could start. Cove had become so much more outgoing than when you had first met him. He was so bright that he shone. He would willingly join conversations, make jokes, and put in an effort not to use overly blunt phrasing. Outdoor and physical activities still had his heart and his body. By this point, he had developed real skill. Many people thought he had what it took to become a pro. Things had shifted between you and Cove. You had been friends for years, but the closer you became, the more you felt for him. You didn't view him in a purely platonic way anymore. It was strange to look back on it all. The future faded into the present, and then it was simply the past. Even the most fundamental parts of your life couldn't last forever. You felt most poignantly the day you inevitably graduated high school. It was over, and you would not be going back ever again. From now on, what came next was your choice. You would be directing your own life. That was where you were currently. Summer after school had ended. The first summer of true freedom. What used to be a reprieve from the typical was now to be your first step into adulthood.